Houses with dogs? 1. I worked for several years as a critical care transport medic for the Texas prison system, and so I spent a lot of time in the back of an ambulance whiling away long rides talking with my patients. Every single one said the same things about dogs. Even the presence of a noisy little chihuahua would make them move on to a less hazardous house, and the thought of encountering a large quiet dog was terrifying. There were plenty of other houses I trained my dogs, especially the big ones, to sit quietly behind me as I talked to visitors at the front door. Those door-to-door magazine salespeople or fundraisers for causes you never heard of who are really just trying to find out who's home during the day and get a peek in your house. Get a good eyeballing from my chief of security. 2. My dad was a cop, and back in the early 70s he had a pit bull. If he was at home, and someone approached the front door, the dog would let out one quiet, almost whispering bark. He'd then stand next to the door, watching, but he wouldn't make another sound. Dad always wondered what would happen if he wasn't home, and eventually he found out. One night while Dad was at work, someone broke into the house. Thunder, the pit bull, apparently sat in the dark, in complete silence, patiently waiting for the burglar to close and lock the door. He then relieved the perp of much of his clothing and a large part of his ass. Dad came home to find the living room littered with scraps of bloody fabric, and the inside of the door covered in frantic, bloody handprints. The guy got out. Turns out it was a drug addict who lived down the block. He was easy to find by following the trail of blood down the sidewalk. Dad didn't have him prosecuted, although they did have an in-depth conversation about the young man's future. The guy told Dad that there was no way in hell he'd have broken in if he'd known about the dog. He moved away within a week. 3. I can say I live on the border of a rough neighborhood. I also have 5 dogs of varying sizes, large to small. One day a thief stole something from a local store that is on the edge of our property. Well, the thief wasn't aware of my animals, so he sneaks around to retrieve his stolen items only to be met by 2 of my most protective dogs. The police told me they chased said thief for over a mile. In fact, the only reason they knew who the thief was is due to my dogs chasing him. Anyhow, fast forward a year. We still aren't locking our doors or concerned about burglars. I pull up at the local Ghetto Fab gas station across the street from the store the thief stole from. There's a guy who notices my van. It has a decal with my dog business on it. He asks if I could train his pit he has with him. I ask, how did you hear about us? I don't train dogs, rather bake dog treats for high-end pet stores, but he's piqued my interest. He says, oh, I heard about your dogs chasing the guy who stole from the store. Ah, I see. So it appears everyone in my Ghetto Fab neighborhood thinks I train animals to chase off thieves. House secured. 4. This happened to a friend twice, both with the same outcome. Friend was a breeder of Rhodesian Ridgeback dogs. When everyone in the house went out, the dogs bar one were put out into garden, with kennels etc. One dog was always left in the house. Friend came home from work to find a teenager standing in her kitchen. Her first thought was he was a friend of her son. Her next thought was there was only one dog in the house, and if her son was home all the dogs would have been in. Also, the dog in the house hadn't rushed to greet her but was sitting by the stranger. The poor boy was terrified the dog had let him come in but was certainly not letting him leave.